life, van life. I can never tell you what living in a van's like. Van life, van life. I could only tell you what a real man's like. All my life my pops had a working van, the type to carry tools not used for traveling land. He stayed within the county, a self-employed man. As I recall, laying drywall, calluses in his hands, juggling odd jobs just to make dividends. His fan made him feel like more than a struggling immigrant. Remember seeing him inside of his truck, organizing stackable bins, screws and bolts tucked. Self-made toolboxes which doubled as seats for us. Sometimes our church clothes got dirty from cement dust. Colada stains on the center console. The visor had a laminated card, St. John the Apostle. Or maybe it was St. Michael stomping out on Pasito. Papers everywhere, my mom calling him cochino. He would oblige and soon after clean up the Dodge. With all his flaws, he showed us how to praise God. Van life, van life. I could never tell you what living in a van's like. Van life, van life. I could only tell you what a real man's like. Before the day, storage was left in an iCloud, and vans became trends for an alternative lifestyle. His had no AC, his windows was always right down, driving with beads of sweat over his eyebrows. Rotating fan to help compensate for heat, a metal partition behind the front seats. Carpenter pencils everywhere, always within reach. I remember him taking us to Crandon Beach. Gates on the windows to try to prevent thievery. Even installed more locks as extra security. He told me it was worth trying, but it may be all in vain, cause a man's will's unstoppable if his goals to attain. That was my dad at his best, at his worst he was left when he would drink after work on a version of stress. Hid bottles under his seat and sometimes the glove box. Didn't want us to see, placed himself in a tough spot. The crib was his home, the van was his office. With his knowledge and his tools, he could never be jobless. Unfortunate, cause the alcohol had did him in. As a result, his health issues prevented him to work again. Around this time, on the fridge was my whip. So as a means to an end, I drove the van for a bit. 2 years approximate, roof leaks, head knocking gaskets. But I still feel lucky for the short time I had it. Van life, van life. I could never tell you what living in a van's like. Van life, van life. I could only tell you what a real man's like.